which is Irene Fubara-Manuel, who is a media artist working in animation and game design. Their previous research is on the colonial project of biometric surveillance and its contemporary applications in migration. They write on race and sexuality in pop culture and is currently interested in African digital futures. Fascinating stuff. Irene, are you there?
Hi, I'm here. Okay. So
Take it
firstly, I just
away.
want to say, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
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 Firstly, I wanted to say I'm very nervous for some reason. So bear with me if I stutter. Also, the project that I wanted to sort of present today is pretty much a work in progress. I know when I spoke to Sharon and Cecile, they said talk more about your PhD, and I'm tired of talking about my PhD. So I'm going to talk about the project that I've been working on since the summer, a research project. So let me start off by sharing my screen with you. Da, da, da. Okay, so let me go into the presenter view here, and hopefully you see the rights. Can everybody see the slides and not the presenter view? Okay, perfect. Okay, so today what I will be talking about is a project that I have started working on in um, collaboration to some extent with the Ada Lovelace Institute. I have just been given a fellowship, or I've just gotten a fellowship with Ada Lovelace Institute, the Just AI Fellowship, where I and three other, or let's say four other people, because there is a group in there, will be addressing things, issues around race and ethnicity and AI. Um, but the issue is that my knowledge is a bit more on biometrics. I think I might go over 10 minutes because Sharon said 10 minutes, but I'm going to go a bit more over. But today what I want to talk about is participation justice, or sorry, design justice, or participation washing, looking at whose labor it is, whose profit, and whose justice we're talking about. And this is sort of me thinking about my research methods, because again, I proposed a research project as opposed to an art project because I wanted to keep developing the information that I already had. Um, so you're pretty much going to help me think around my research today. So I'm happy for feedback for anything that people can do. So my past work, pretty much biometrics, it was titled Animating Opacity, Race, Borders, and Biometric Surveillance. It was me what's it called, responding to biometric technologies using other forms of technologies, creative practices to respond to what Lewis and Moore has called the biometric border, which is pretty much the network of databases and technologies that keep migrants under surveillance and tied to the border at all times, despite their location. So moving on from that, right now, working on the Ada Lovelace Institute Just AI Fellowship, and what the fellowship sort of came around. The call for proposals came around in August, mid-August, very late when everybody was away during summer, and I pretty much had a week or two to write down the entire proposal. And while I was working on the proposal, I was interested in the work of Sasha Costanza Chuck, Design Justice. And this is pretty much just the article inside of the book. So she's talking about the broader immigration system in the US and to some extent in the UK as well, is an algorithmic system. It has been designed according to the political priorities of the power holders, and it is an algorithm that has long privilege, whiteness, heteronormativity, cisnormativity, wealth, and higher socioeconomic status. So this brings me to the object of my study, right? Which is the streaming algorithm. So again, talking about algorithms, automated decision systems, I think there's a trend, right? right now. So I think every 3 or 4 months we get a hot new algorithm that blows up in the news, and we're all interested in it. So over the summer it was the A levels algorithm, the mutant algorithm, by the way, by Boris Johnson, that we were all focusing on, but we didn't necessarily have any information on the streaming algorithm. So it is the algorithm automated decision making system used by the Home Office from 2015 to 2020, around August, actually, it was discontinued. And it was discontinued on the basis of it had a feedback loop that attributes people who had risky nationalities. It rejected their visas. But in that process of rejection, it sort of takes it, the algorithm learns to reject people from that nationality, and for the fact that they have been rejected, they will always keep rejecting. So you have a feedback loop of the nationality causes causes rejection, and the rejection causes more rejection, if that makes sense. Yes. Okay. So this is what I wanted to focus on, the streaming algorithm, and I wanted to use participatory action research, which is something again that I've used multiple times. My bachelor's was in gender studies. I came into MA now, doing what's it called, media practice for development. So participatory action research is something that it's pretty much like, my research my research crutch to some extent. It's the design method that I always fall back to, because it helps me to sort of connect with people and have them not only participate in the research, but also create something in response to the issues that we are sort of discussing via the research. But the issue that kept coming back to me was this sentence by Safia Umoja Noble, where she writes, in Algorithms of Oppression, that the onus for change tends to be placed on the backs of Black people, especially Black women in the United States. They play more of a meaningful role, or they're asked to play more of a meaningful role in producing new image ideas about Black people by learning to code, as if that shift alone would shift the tide of Silicon Valley's vast exclusionary practices. So she's writing this in response to the Google, so Algorithms of Oppression, if people don't know it, is Safia Umoja Noble talking about how search engines sort of replicate racial biases, and how search engines sort of carry on the work of racism. But in sort of response to that, what you see loads of people say is that, why don't we teach Black women, why don't we teach these marginalized communities how to code so that they can fix the problem that Google created, right? Because it is a problem that Google created. But with that saying, it now comes into contrast again with the idea of design justice by Costanza Chuck. She writes, as a trans, femme, non-binary person, I present a problem that is not easily resolved by the algorithm. So we must redesign systems based off of the lived experience of people that they harm the most, right? So in this sense, she proposes design justice. She asks us to rethink design processes, center people who are normally marginalized by design, use collaborative practices to address the deepest challenges in our communities. So she gives these principles of design justice about sustainability, about healing, centering voices that are directly impacted, prioritizing impacts on the communities, working as a facilitator, designers working as facilitators rather than experts. And that's quite interesting, because I just came out from a long 2-3 hour meeting, again with Ada, but also in collaboration with the national, I can't even remember it, the national data something, I can't remember. Right now my brain is not working. But it was pretty much us talking to government agents about fairness, accountability, and transparency, the FAT, right? The 3 words that keep coming back over and over again. And again, it wasn't necessarily about collaboration to some extent. It was just about you tell us what it is that you want or give us some, feedback, and we will go and do whatever we choose to do with it to some extent. So this is where the principles of design justice could be very useful, because again, it's not about, having experts respond to things. It's more about a designer working as a facilitator, sort of, facilitating, mediating a process that gets people to think more about the tools that are being used. And she also stresses non-exploitative solutions. But this is me bouncing back and forth in terms of my thoughts, right? So now taking into account that design justice I think the book just got released this year by Costanza Chuck. But design justice is coming at the sort of in the middle of this trend in AI and AI research. So this is a quote, again, long quotes, don't need to read it, from Deloitte. I don't know if people know Deloitte is a consultancy firm. They do loads of research. And this is their research on technology. And a person here working for Deloitte sort of says, participatory design requires in-depth methodology that brings to light how an entire community of individuals interact with the technology. Broadening the scope requires communities that are part of the solution to be part of the design process. By doing so, we can uncover potential system issues and target where human-centered design principles can best be applied. So we're seeing this push inside of technology firms, in Google, in in a lot of systems that are sort of working with automated decision systems. They're coming in, applying for the past 3 or 4 years. They've been applying participatory design research, and this is what has sort of brought up this term called participation washing in AI. And this, again, very recent work over the summer. So this was from I can't remember it. It was sort of like a long conference on participation research in AI over the summer. And if people were interested in AI, that's an interesting thing to look for. I'm sure if you should search for Moan Sloan, you'll be able to get more information about it. But they were responding. So given that, loads of technology firms have been bringing in participation design as part of their process to sort of, to address accountability, but not address accountability at the same time. You have people like Sloan, Moss, and Awolomo and Forlano writing about participation washing and the extractive processes in participation design. As they say, participation plus capitalism equals extraction. And again, you're just, following that same colonial sort of colonial process of going into a community and taking away all the information, and in some cases using that to sort of wash your hands off of any problems that might have happened simply because you spoke to them. So to some extent, participation then becomes performative, right? So they talk about the 3 forms of participation as work, because again, a lot of these tech firms would go into communities and not compensate people. Participation as consultation, so they would go again, consult with people, get information that they wanted, but not even apply it, just so that it looks good. It looks like, public facing. It has, good optics. And then the final version that she talks about is participation as justice, which is closer to what Costanza Chuck is talking about in design justice. So when the writers go more into talking about equity and participation and design justice, they talk more about how participation should be recognized as work, how it's important to think of it in terms of long-term and specific contexts. But then my gender studies brain started ticking. I was like, hold on, I think I must have heard something like this. Isn't it called standpoint theory? So again, it falls back to what's her name? Costanza Chuck had already introduced the work of Hill Collins, right? But you hardly see Black feminist thought being brought into any discussion of participation design, except for, yes, Costanza Chuck, who credits Hill Collins, credits intersectional feminism, and sort of not even just using intersectional feminism, but also using Patricia Hill Collins's matrices of domination to explain the different ways that identities sort of, interact to create a larger sort of, oppressive environment for a person. So, for the people who don't know, standpoint theory, according to Patricia Hill Collins, is a social theory arguing that a group location in hierarchical power relations produces common challenges for individuals in those group. Shared experiences in that sense can foster similar angles of vision, leading to group knowledge or standpoints deemed essential for informed political action. So this means, in terms of research, when you get a group of people who have a shared, lived experience, and you get them sort of thinking together, you can then inform political action. And that way you have participation and political action, right? And that's what's important about standpoint theory. So I can then sort of buttress this discussion, going back again to what Constanza Chuck says, that intersectionality is crucial for the concept of development of AI. But again, because I'm thinking a lot, is it though? Is it though? Is intersectionality, is it necessary again for us to bring in intersectionality into talking about AI if we don't necessarily take into consideration that the people who are doing the work in this intersectional work tend to be, women, Black women, queer people, trans, non-binary people. And then and this is sort of where I would like to end and ask people, how do we properly do intersectional feminist research on AI without placing the labor of coding justice onto marginalized people? How do you sort of engage people without telling them to fix the problem that somebody else created, if you catch what I mean? Yes, so that's me.